Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shocker Family Connections. You're here for the third installment of this series. Welcome. All week, we have been doing programs related to how you, as a parent or family member, can support your Shocker. Today's program is brought to you by our Office of Student Success and Kim Sandlin, who will be talking to you about strategies and secrets for academic success. If you're just tuning in and you haven't participated in any other programs, you might want to know that if you're viewing this from YouTube Live and you want to ask any questions of our presenter, you'll need to log in to be able to add your questions to the comment section. If you're viewing this from Facebook Live, you can enter your comments in the section at any time. And then after Kim is done presenting, we'll then take questions and allow you to get some feedback. So we hope you enjoyed today's presentation. The series is going on throughout the remainder of the week. And tomorrow we'll be doing a presentation on cultivating culture and identity of your students. So we hope you tune in. But in the meantime, I want to introduce you to Kim Sandlin, who will be talking today about academic success. Hello, Kim.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Many of you I might have spoken to before through this very platform. So it's nice to virtually see our parents of our Shockers again. I'm glad you chose to join in today. There's a lot happening academically in your students' lives, and so we want to be sure that we're sharing tips with you that you may be able to pass on to your students or encourage your students to check out if they're having problems or struggling in class a little bit. So I'll just kind of briefly talk about the things that we'll talk about or that I'll cover. And we may take the whole hour. I want to leave plenty of time for questions. That's often the best part of these programs is the interactive piece with you all, so that I make sure that I'm addressing your questions that you have as it relates to academic success and strategies for navigating the fall and potentially the upcoming spring as well. You might learn some tips here to share with your students. So I want to talk a little bit about Blackboard, which is our learning management system. I'm not going to get too far into detail there, but we'll share a great resource for you that we've put together with our friends in IDA. We'll talk a little bit about Zoom and Teams, just some pointers that you might be able to share with your students that can really make a note for the instructor that your student is participating really well in class. They can give signals to the instructor that your student is there and is active and is listening and is on the other side of that screen often. We'll talk a little bit about study skills, where your students can find some resources when it comes to note-taking, time management, memorization techniques, things like that. So we've got a few tips and tricks on our website that we'll share there. We'll talk a little bit about time management as well. I would say this is the number one topic that we get requests on from students, whether they are brand new or whether they are graduating and getting ready to enter the workforce. So time management is huge, maybe something that your students are struggling with. Also talking about reaching out for help. So how are your students going to get, or how do they request a tutor? How do they access supplemental instruction if their classes have that resource? Where can they find more information there? And then we'll talk a little bit about success coaches and peer coaches and the support that your students can get from those individuals as well. Depends on the students as far as who might be able to influence them more, either a full-time professional or a peer. I think every student responds in a different way and to different people, either sharing their experiences as a peer or more as a professional coach with them. And so if we have time at the end, I'll also just share a little bit of information on what your students can expect. Enrollment for spring is right around the corner, which we just started fall, but typically about midterm is when you start preparing for the following semester. So those are the things that we're going to get to today. The first thing I want to talk about a little bit is Blackboard. This is our learning management system, and this is most likely where your students are spending a lot of their time. And probably, I'm going to make an assumption that your students are probably a little kind of in a love-hate relationship right now with Blackboard, meaning that every class looks different, posts things in different places, utilizes the platform differently. And so what may be working for them in one class may not really be working for them in another class. So the first place that I would say you could go to tell your student to go to find help with Blackboard is a section on our website. And I think Tia's got a snapshot here. This is our website. If you scroll about a little bit over halfway down, right there, Shocker Secrets to Student Success. She's hovering right over that Blackboard help video. If you click that link, then that should be taking you to a series. It's a playlist on YouTube, and there's all kinds of great information. Our friends in Instructional Design and Access put these together. They are the experts when it comes to Blackboard. That's a great zoom right there. Thank you. One of the critical things right now that your students need to be doing is making sure they know how to view the comments and feedback. And so that first link, it's about a 5-minute video. That first link right there will launch a video for them, telling them all the different ways that they can look at their instructor feedback. We've heard from some faculty that they've been giving feedback, but they're not seeing the students taking that feedback into consideration in the next assignment or the next paper or the next project that they're working on. And so it's important that students know where to find this feedback. It's critical so that they can improve and maximize their potential for their success in that class. So knowing where to see those comments is huge. Simple things like, how do you submit an assignment? There's a video on there telling them exactly how to do that. How to email their class is another great one. A lot of students right now feel like, I'm doing classes from home. I don't feel a lot of connection. I wonder if other students may want to get together to form a study group or something like that. Those videos will help them understand what the process is for emailing their classmates. And I want to take the opportunity while the weather is still pretty decent, and it'll be pretty decent in the coming weeks. If your students are struggling with not being on campus, there's nothing that is prohibiting them or saying you can't come to campus. We see every now and again, we'll see students out on the lawn of the RSC or Linquist or another building on blankets, studying, utilizing the Wi-Fi. This is a great place if your student just needs a change of environment and might like to be outside. There's no reason why a small group of students could not distance themselves outside in one of the lawn areas and log in and attend class that way. There are a lot of ways that they can connect with their classmates that maybe they've never thought of, but now we have to be a little innovative in the way that we reach out to students in our classes, both from the instructor to the student and also student to student. Please help them make those connections. It's really important that they meet their peers. I know a staff member who is enrolled in an advanced degree and was having trouble with some of the expectations in one of her PhD classes. And she's like, I needed help, so I emailed all of the students, and the other students in the class said, we're having the same problem. And within about an hour, they were all on a separate Zoom that one of them had set up, and they were talking about the assignment and helping each other walk through the expectations, interpretations of what the faculty member was saying, and those kinds of things. So it's really important that students are leaning on each other and know that that is a possibility. So again, if they're staying in their residence hall room a lot, they're not getting out, or even if they live here in the local area and they kind of miss being on campus, they can come to campus and do. Library is open for studying or research or whatever they might need there. But study groups, I think a lot of our students have assumed that due to circumstances they can't come to campus and we can't meet in person at all. And that's not the case. We just have to think about it a little bit differently. So encourage your students to form those connections in their classes. So knowing how to email other students in their classes is really, really important. The other kinds of things in Blackboard, just so that they know, they can't mess anything up. They can't break it. If they go to a certain tab and they click on something, the system's set up where a student can't break the class. So have them explore. If they've not looked at some of the features in Blackboard, have them take a look over the weekend and have them kind of go through there a little bit and look. There's places where if all of the faculty members have posted due dates and deadlines for all of their work, Blackboard will pull that all together in one place for a student so that they can keep track of what's due when, what do I need to be thinking about, what do I look ahead for. And that's really important as we talk through time management and that school, work, life balance. Planning your time, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Not only have your students probably become very familiar with Blackboard, they're probably using Zoom and probably Microsoft Teams a lot, and have probably learned a lot of do's and don'ts there. But we put a list together and just want to go through a few things there. One, if there is synchronous learning going on, which synchronous learning means that the class is gathered together in the same space, either most likely virtually, but either in person or virtually, that's synchronous learning. If they're in an environment like that, to give clues, it's important for them to give clues that they're paying attention. There's nothing, I hear a lot of faculty and folks in a lot of these meetings lately. There's nothing worse than a whole bunch of squares and black screens and blank kinds of areas that you're looking at, not knowing what kind of reaction there is, not knowing, are people listening? Are they not? Are they tuning out? Did they go to the bathroom? Have they just logged on and said their name is reconnecting and pieced out and are having a snack, or what's happening? So it's important that your students learn those little signals that they are with the instructor, or they have a question, or they're listening, or they don't understand something. So knowing how to use and utilize those tools is important. So a couple of things I would mention. First thing is, it's better to have a picture up on your screen. If you don't want to have your camera on, a great option is a picture so that the faculty member can actually see a face, whether it's a still face or a moving live face. A face is better than no face. If your student is joining from their phones, this is also important so that the faculty members knows you're there. Many times on Zoom, that square, your student's square on Zoom will show up as either their ID, which you don't want to have that out there for folks to see, or a phone number, and you don't always want to have that out for folks to see. So if you can put some kind of picture or image, even if you don't want to share a picture, something that your student may be interested in, a hobby. I've seen in the case of my son's classes, Xbox logos are very popular. Gaming logos and characters are very popular. Try to steer away from that, but at least that is some kind of image versus an ID or a phone number appearing on the screen when you may not want that to happen. The other thing, when some of our faculty do ask you to turn on the your camera if you're comfortable with that. If your student is maybe in a space in an apartment or a house or elsewhere where they're not comfortable sharing that, there are options to have a blurred screen or some Zoom screens, and I'll share a resource a little bit later on where you might be able to find those, where your students can find those, so that they're not uncomfortable turning on their camera when the time comes and if the faculty member says that. There's also some different features where you can do a thumbs up, you can do hands that are clapping, you can raise your hand so the professor knows that you have a question. So it's those little hints and tips and tricks that really signal to the professor, I'm with you, my camera's just not on today, right? And so want to make sure that students are aware of those things and to encourage them to utilize those unless the faculty member has said, don't use those. Students should be using those to give those kinds of cues to the person who's teaching the course. That's all kind of Zoom things. I will say that Microsoft Teams is another platform that is used on campus. A lot of our academic advisors will use Microsoft Teams. A lot of meetings on campus are utilizing Teams. Again, it's a little more secure if you are not in a class and you want to really control who's in that meeting. Teams is a little bit more secure in that way, but you can do the same kind of thing. You can have a picture up, you can blur your background. I think Teams now has come out with some virtual backgrounds that you can pretend you're at the beach or somewhere out in space, balloons behind you, things like that, if that is of interest. There's also sometimes in academic advising in particular, when they're using Teams, they like to share the screen. And so our advisors will often ask the student, share your screen, and I can walk you through and tell you exactly where to click, because sometimes the information and where the student's looking may be different than where a professor is looking or an advisor is looking, someone that you're meeting with. And so when you share those screens, know how to share your screens so that we can better assist you. I think all of us on campus are more than happy to assist everyone virtually. Sometimes we have to see stuff, right? Since we're not in person, to make sure that we're on the same page. So know how to do that as well. And I think those were the main things that I wanted to share as far as Zoom and Teams go. Talked about Blackboard. So let's go ahead and go on to study skills. If you could bring back up our website, the Student Success website, I can show everybody where you can find some of the study skills. So if you scroll down, that's our page, our students at orientation. So if you scroll to the bottom of our main page, again, it's wichita.edu/success or student success right there. Thank you. There's a bunch of links here, and that first one with the light bulb is study tips. So go ahead if you'd click on that for me, Tia. Thank you. And scroll down. We've got lots of tips and techniques, talking about when you're multitasking, people can't multitask. We've seen that a lot lately in a lot of our meetings, and just tips and things there. If you scroll to the bottom of the tips and techniques, here's where you'll really start getting some of that information. Is in note-taking, time management, organization. If your student has issues or challenges with becoming organized, the organization, reading strategies, test-taking, and memory strategies. So thanks, Tia, for showing that. If you click on any of those, we have some additional information on each one. So let's click on, Tia, if you'll, sorry. If you will click on, let's just do note-taking because it's the top one. And it's a common one that we get questions on. So there's different things that you can do there. Important steps of note-taking: observe, record, review, things to listen for as you're taking notes. If the instructor starts talking really softly, or in contrast, says, this is really important. You must know this information. Things that they might write on a whiteboard, or pauses, tone of, level and level of volume and all that good stuff, right? So there's some interesting, tips there. Flow charts, outlines, keywords when you're taking notes, Cornell method, all of that good stuff. And then talking about reviewing your notes. A lot of students take their notes and shut their book and go on, with life. It's really important that you review those notes before the next session. So thanks, Tia, for showing that. So those kinds of study skills are available as well on our website. Also want to put just a note out there for you all that we do have peer coaches who can work with students on sharpening those skills. So note taking, preparing for exams, putting study schedules together. We have peer coaches who can help with that. And in particular, in the Chakra Learning Center, which is part of our area, we have a tool that's available online called the LASSI. LASSI is how you spell that. It is an online study skills assessment that will just ask you some questions. Students can fill it out, and then it gives them areas that they should potentially work on sharpening skills. So maybe that's test taking, maybe that's organization, maybe those are other things. And so our peer coaches can work with students on interpreting those results and saying, it seems like maybe you need some reading strategies. Maybe it's difficult for you to read your textbook because it is content heavy, and they are big books and there's a lot of reading. And that's one of the things that I often jump into things before I read them, and that's a problem of mine. Reading is fundamental, right? We've all been taught that. So knowing how to interpret your text and have some time-saving tips there. Our peer coaches can help out with that. Also want to talk about how your students can reach out for help. So say your students are struggling with the content in their class. A couple of different ways that we provide students assistance. First is tutoring. So in the traditional sense of getting a tutor, it's a one-on-one, potentially small group, but typically one-on-one, depending on how many requests we are getting for each class. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 students that we work with at one session, but that's really the exception, not the rule. In tutoring, it's pretty much one-to-one assistance in their classes. So that is a free service for students. There are a lot of opportunities out in the world to get a professional tutor, and you're going to be paying for a professional tutor. And that's great if you have the resources to be able to do that. If you don't, then you can reach out to our office. You can go again to the tutoring or the student success website, or from your students portal, which is their My WSU. In the student tools box is a link that says request a tutor, and they can click on that link, and they are then taken to a platform that will ask them a few questions. They'll indicate for which class, very specific class, down to the section number, and then our office will receive that request and reach out to them and match them with a tutor. If we don't have a tutor for the particular class that they need assistance in, then we work with the faculty, we work with information of students who have previously taken the course to see if someone might be interested in tutoring someone in that course. Our tutors from our department all have to have earned an A in the class to serve as a tutor or as a supplemental instruction leader. So these are students who've taken the class on our campus who have done very well and who are interested in helping others. These are typically our motivated students who might want to be professors in the future, or might be in a teacher ed program and just want that instructional experience. And there are others that a lot of our tutors will be looking at graduate school, law school, med school, things like that. So we've got a phenomenal group of tutors. We just became a certified program, level 2 certification, which is a big deal. It takes a lot to get to that level, and it's just kind of a reassurance that students are getting a quality experience with the tutoring from our office. So we're really proud about that, getting that program certified. Many of your students may be in a class that has supplemental instruction, and that program is a little bit different from tutoring in that the leaders who serve in those leader positions, the SI or supplemental instruction leader position, have also taken the class, but they actually attend the class with the students, paying attention, taking notes, participating in chats, things like that online. And they will hold weekly review sessions outside of class. And that is typically dependent upon the students who are choosing to participate in that program. Maybe they've indicated most of them are available on Tuesdays at 3 in the afternoon. So that's when our SI leader will go and schedule a remote. Typically it's remote. Some are happening in person. Those are handled on a case-by-case basis. But if the class is being offered remotely, then the support is being offered remotely as well. So more than likely that is a Zoom session or a Teams session with that SI leader. That SI leader really works with the students not only on study skills, because oftentimes the students who reach out for help and may need are struggling in a class or just school's not really happening for them, they may struggle with study skills more than the content. And so our SI leaders and our tutors are both trained for that content area, expertise and review, and also how to help students sharpen those study skills so that they are more prepared for exams and things like that. What I would say is that some students have been confused by how to get connected to their SI leader. So all of your students have all of their classes in Blackboard. About a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, they have an additional Blackboard class with their SI leader. And so all of that work happens within the Blackboard platform. So say they're in Chemistry 211. They have their Chemistry 211 with their faculty member. It's where all their assignments and the projects and the syllabus and all of that work is happening. But they also have a second Chemistry 211 supplemental instruction course as well. And so students can always find great information there, regardless if they can make the SI session itself or not. Our SI leaders are keeping that Blackboard up. They're posting information. It is extremely helpful, especially as midterms are approaching and maybe to prepare for other exams or projects happening in those classes. Supplemental instruction is typically offered with our classes that have a higher rate of lower earned grades, I'll put it that way. Historically difficult for our students, a lot of enrollment, and so that extra support layer of support is intentionally built into those courses. Certainly there are other departments and areas that have tutoring programs as well. Our TRIO programs, if any of your students are first generation students, they should try our, see if they qualify for our TRIO programs, which include student support services, disability support services, and if any of your students are looking to pursue graduate work, you might look into McNair. All three of those programs students have to qualify for. Typically first generation low income students, but not always. So if you can search those up on our website, you can find out all of the criteria students have to meet in order to participate in our TRIO programs. They have a great track record of success and can really offer a lot of one-on-one help, attention, tutoring, mentoring, things like that. So you might check out those programs as well. Office of Diversity and Inclusion also has a great program through PASS, and that's personal and academic student success, I believe, is what that stands for. They have a great group of tutors through ODI to help our diverse students make sure that they're connecting and succeeding academically as well. So there's all kinds of pockets of tutoring and assistance help happening all over campus. Our office is kind of the umbrella place and someplace you can start if your student is struggling and doesn't quite know where to go or quite know which service is best for them. All right. The last thing I wanted to mention before we get to questions is, again, our peer coaches I mentioned a little bit earlier can work with students on developing better study habits, study skills, accountability, can do accountability check-ins, but also our success coaches have helped a lot of students, are currently working with students who are struggling in classes, connecting them with our Shocker Learning Center, our tutoring programs. Those coaches are assigned to each academic college, and they will do particular outreach to certain populations, just saying, hey, did you realize this resource was available? Or hey, your faculty member reached out to me and wanted me to check in on you and make sure everything was going okay. Is there something I can help you with? And often the coaches are helping students with procrastination. They're helping students with organization. They're helping students with time management. That's one of the biggies. If your student doesn't yet have a structured schedule that they are following, that's going to really go far in helping them stay on top of their courses, life in general, and that skill follows them way beyond college, way beyond college. So the kinds of skills that we work with students on, range from, and specifically in time management, there's a couple of resources we have available. On our website, there's a kind of a calculator where students can enter how many hours are you in class, and you should be studying 2 or 3 hours outside of every class for every hour you're in class. So what does that then look like? And are you working? And if so, how many hours? And are you sleeping? Sleep is a huge thing that our students sacrifice. They're often not getting enough sleep and not getting quality sleep. And that's a problem when it comes to academics because it's hard to keep engaged in the class. And so we want to make sure that students are getting sleep as well, right? So we kind of take them through how many hours a week are you spending in each of these areas, and then how much time do you have left at the end of the week? And some students are really shocked when they don't have anything left, or they're in a negative balance of, time at the end of the week. And so we talk to them about, where are your priorities? Are your priorities aligned with how you're spending your time? Because that's really time management's priority management. If they are committed to being a good student, then we'll help them put that study schedule together that can really benefit them and maximize that potential. If they are balancing life roles, if they are balancing work, if they're balancing, hygiene and, all of that stuff, that all adds up, right? So all of that together impacts whether or not they're really doing well in class. Are they coming to class on time? Are they a few minutes early? Are they staying until a few people have started, leaving the class, or are they the first ones out of there? And they're like, okay, whatever, I'm done with this meeting. And that their attitude and all of that really goes into time and priority management and how they're looking at things. And so our coaches can really help students. They can work on all kinds of personal skills to help them strengthen their time. I do thank you, Tia, for putting that up there. Student Affairs has free planners. Okay, so free planners for anyone who doesn't have a planning system. That's the other piece to time management. You've got to have a system of some kind. Those of us who are my age and older, which are typically now parents of college age and high school and middle school and younger and older, right? I came up through college with a planner, and it was paper to pen, and I was writing things down. And for me, I know if I write something down, I am much more likely to remember it. And so that system works for me. it was actually really hard for me to make the transition to Outlook, which is what we use for our professional jobs. And now I'm, more of the Outlook person, have it on my phone. So your student needs some kind of system to help them organize their time, to keep them organized as well. So those planners, great. A simple Excel file where they're putting all of their assignments and projects and things together in one place. They can find one system that works and get it all in one system. They tend to be a little bit more successful with that. So we can help them with all of that. Student Affairs can help you with that as well. Lots of folks on campus, because as I mentioned, time management is one of those things that we're asked about all of the time. It is a life skill. All right. Tia, are there any, it doesn't look like there have been comments or questions that have come in, but I don't want to miss anything. Has anything come in folks are wondering about?
No, we haven't had any questions so far. So I think you've done a pretty thorough job, Kim,
Thank you.
talking about all the services and opportunities that are available. And yes, we did put on the comment about the free planners. I know in working with students, their phone
Yep.
their phone is pretty much what they use. And so if they can find, whether it's a tool or an app, even the reminder section, I know iPhone has a very good reminder section, and you can incorporate dates and deadlines and all of that, whether it's a one-time deadline or it's a weekly reminder. So those are some amazing tools for them to use. Kim, let's see. I know we've talked about Blackboard and Zoom and all of those tools that are out there. Do you know of any other services that are, or classes that are using different platforms?
I haven't heard anything beyond Zoom and Teams, although Teams, I just put them together. Zoom and Teams are not the only thing that's possible. I know based on what my younger kids are doing, but I haven't heard anything else in any other platforms that any professors are using here beyond Zoom. Mainly Zoom. I think we're a Zoom heavy campus when it comes to instruction. But I did want to mention a website that I forgot about earlier. That remote student website.
Yep.
If your student is having trouble maybe with connectivity, maybe they have connectivity issues, or maybe their laptop is a little older and may not be able to, doesn't have the memory to hold the Zoom, whatever that may be. If you go to wichita.edu/remote student, it's on the screen there, and there's a great picture of it there. Again, this was put together by our Media Resources Center and our Instructional Design and Access team. And so if you're not sure kind of where to begin and being an expert in remote learning, this at least gives you a place to start. So that first step there is check your tech. If you are needing to request a laptop or if you're needing to request a hotspot, this is where you go, or you can go to do it. It's where I would recommend you go to do it. Now, right now, they have all of our supplies have been requested and have been out, are being currently utilized for students. So I'll get to another option here in a minute, but checking your tech is probably the best place to go. And then there's more, the using Blackboard is your step 2. So again, more instructional information there, how to really master the use and where to find that and really make Blackboard work for you as a student, right? So there are all kinds of tools and things that you can learn about Blackboard there. Applications, that's where you'll find information about Zoom and Teams, is in that step 3 in applications. And then 4, just some general information about being successful. So our folks over in IDA have put together a really great set of information there, a set of steps to walk you through that learning process as a remote student. So I know a lot of students have found that to be really, really helpful. So that was the other thing I forgot to mention earlier. So glad you asked that question, Tia. The other thing I would say, one of the things that we're hearing from students right now is that they don't feel connected to campus. There's kind of a sense of isolation, and that's a real feeling, and we want to make sure that we are reaching out to students. I know a lot of areas on campus are doing very intentional work on connecting, maybe outside of the screen, maybe actually on the phone, which is interesting. Students don't like talking on the phone. Sometimes I don't like it either, but beyond a text message and beyond a screen, making those connections with students, because we know that this is not necessarily the college experience that they were expecting, right? So helping them understand that, again, they are welcome to come to campus. There are very few, um, people walking around campus if they're concerned about the number of people and that it's overwhelming if they come into the Radigan Student Center or something like that. There are plenty of spaces on campus that are open for studying and other activities as well. They just might have to kind of reframe the way that they envisioned their college experience. And I would have my blinds open. My blinds are closed because it usually produces a glare on the screen, but you could see that there's very, very few people. I very rarely see more than two people walking on campus together. So if your student is worried about, large crowds and that kind of thing, that's just not happening on campus during the day. I would say during the day in particular. So again, we want to make sure that students know that they're welcome to come to campus. We have some of our professors have gone around campus. We have a bunch of Adirondack chairs that have been part of a program on campus that want to make sure that people feel welcome and that they can hang out here, right? Well, that was definitely the case before March, but still some of our professors will go out and round up all the Adirondack chairs they can find and put them in a big old circle and then have class outside. And so that is something that I don't think that students know that they can do or have considered doing it. I know I mentioned it a little bit earlier, maybe coming out and having a study group on the lawn, on a blanket or whatever. We have hammocks out around campus as well, and there have been students enjoying themselves on those hammocks, which we love to see. And so if your student is worried that they won't be safe on campus, it really is, as long as they're not in huge groups, they're going to be okay. And we encourage them to have some kind of connection there, because we know that, we don't want this to be the experience forever. It has to be the experience now, and we are hoping that it's not the experience forever. We just don't know when the end of this experience will be. So we need students to work with us to help identify, what can we do? Are there things that you're not getting that maybe we can do better, or are there things that we can help you consider in how you spend your time, how you're communicating with the students in your classes? What are the ways that we can bring you together in safe ways that may not have ever been your ultimate college on your college prep list, right? So that's one of the things that we're really trying to help students understand, is there's lots of things to do. You just have to think about it a little bit differently. And I know, Tia, your shop had a virtual information fair recently. Oh, and actually an in-person information.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say we had that in person. It was over a 2-day period, and we've got some other events coming up that are in person. We've got a movie that we're showing on Thursday. I've been telling folks to go online to wichita.edu and hit up the event listing, because it has a full calendar of offerings that are available from various departments on campus.
Yeah, that you guys are doing a series of outdoor movies, which I thought was really creative, and our amphitheater, which is a place that I don't even think a lot of current students know that we have, let alone new students. So that's a great opportunity there to, again, kind of come together in a safe way, and just kind of hang out and spend your time, and not and having some kind of connection, because we know that's really, really important for our students. Most of our offices are still just in the service areas are operating. Obviously, we're operating remotely, of course, but have some in-person options. But you have to plan in advance, and that's one of the things that goes back to time management. You have to plan in advance. Call the office that you need assistance from. See, if you're the person you want to meet with is not on campus on a certain day, call in advance so you know when they might be in the office, when there might be an opportunity for you to meet with them in person. It just takes some advanced planning. I think for me, one of the things that my family does all the time, which is a bad habit, but we like to eat out, right? So we now have a list of places that, we got to call in advance, and these places we can't go, and these places we can go, and what's available and on what days and at what times and which way. Is it a go drive through? Is it a curbside? So all of that we've all had to manage a little bit differently. And so I don't think it's any different on campus. I don't think it's any different across the country. I think there are very few campuses that are all one way or the other, either virtual or in person, and there's no middle ground there, right? So all of us, who are majority of our institutions across the country, are in this kind of middle ground, all trying to, and we're working with each other too, trying to figure out what are you all doing, what can we learn from each other to make this experience successful for our students, and unique and enjoyable and positive, and preparing for when we're back to perhaps a more traditional. I'm hoping that it's maybe more traditional but still different, because if there's one thing that this entire situation has taught us, it's that we as an institution need to be thinking about all of the different ways that we need to make ourselves available for students. And we were missing out on serving all of our students the best that we could, because we were so in our ways of, this is when we do business, and this is when we have events, and this is the way we do things. And now that's really been kind of blown out of the water, and we've all had to make some adjustments to make sure that we're still there for students, and there when we need us, or when they need us, and know how to get to us when they need us. So we've done a lot of work in there. Before we end, I know we're running sort of short on time here. Wanted to talk a little bit about enrollment for the spring. I mentioned at the top of the hour that enrollment for spring is coming up. It is indeed coming up. Many of you, if you are parents of first-year students, will be getting information from One Stop from your first-year advisor for your second semester advising appointment. Those are required appointments for our first year students. So make sure that you're getting connected with your academic advisor, work with them. If this online thing is kind of working for you and you're like, I can make this happen, I'm pretty good at this, talk to them about that. Have them find classes and help you determine which types of classes to get in. If you are one that's like, I'd rather have as much in person as I can we try to find those classes? Your advisors can help you navigate that for the spring and make any other adjustments that you might need in the spring. Many of you may be looking at, you thought you were going to go full time, but with work potentially or other things that are happening, you may not be able to have 15 hours or 12 hours. And so there's a lot of flexibility. I want to make sure you understand how the spring semester is organized. We will start in January like we always have started in January. However, all instruction in January is all going to be remote. It's all going to be online. The more traditional, what's now traditional, the hybrid model of the combination of in-person and online will start in February. So we're still starting instruction in January for the spring semester. Those hybrid classes won't start until February, and there is no spring break. Let me repeat that. There is no spring break. So students and us as staff and our faculty all kind of have to think about that differently, because there will not be a week off in March like we've traditionally had. The way we've kind of structured and moved back the start of those hybrid courses, we have to have that week for instruction. And so just looking ahead. Again, always want to look ahead, always want to look at the next semester, what's on the horizon, what am I doing, how am I setting myself up to succeed. Meeting with an advisor early to talk about those options and what your options are is really, really important. And they will start right now. They're starting. You can call up your advising center. You can get a scheduled appointment for October. And then enrollment will begin, the actual enrolling in classes will begin in November, like it typically does. But you don't have to wait that long to see your advisor. So we encourage students to make sure that you're getting in to see your advisor. Not all majors are required to see their academic advisor. If you are a first year student, you are required for your second semester. Depending on your major and your program, like many things, it varies on whether or not you're required to see your advisor and whether that's a faculty advisor or a staff advisor. So if you have questions about that or need contact information for advising, wichita.edu/advising is the place to start. And then it'll break down, are you a new student, are you first year, are you transfer? And then it'll list out all of the academic colleges as well. So not too early to be thinking about next semester, spring, what's going to happen with all of that. So I think with that, I think I am done. Tia, did any other questions come in?
No questions came in. I told you you were very thorough. I think the one question I'm going to pitch out to you, Kim, as we're wrapping up is for parents who might have first generation students, new first year students, what can they expect from midterms? So like what, in a concept, what is midterms? What can they expect? How can they support their students through that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So if your students not navigated this, and maybe you haven't navigated it or navigated a very long time ago, like some of us have, midterms, it's actually, this may sound a little crass, it's a bunch of hype for a test, if you think about it that way. If your student has done everything they can, they have been to class, they have been taking notes, they have been preparing, they've been reading, they have been caught up and all of that. If your student has been doing everything along the way to be successful, midterms is just another wave of exams in their classes. It's nothing to get anxious about. Having said that, there is a lot of anxiety around midterms as pressure. I think previously, historically, there have been, horror stories of my ultimate grade was based half on a midterm and half on a final, and that was it. And while there may be some of those classes out there, that is very rarely what's happening. We have been encouraging faculty to have more frequent, lower stakes assignments as students are trying to become more familiar with remote learning. So what that means is what we try to encourage faculty to do are have, maybe they have weekly exams, but they're shorter exams versus a high stakes one-time midterm and then a project, and then a final. We're trying to get back to, let's have a few more assignments along the way so that we can provide feedback to students to make those adjustments. So it really depends on the student as far as what midterms mean. For some students, that means their 8-week classes or their half semester classes are wrapping up and they'll start another set, or maybe they'll start a new class at midterm. That happens as well. But again, if you've got students who are worried about that, preparing for midterms is important. And a couple of things I would say about that. Again, we have some test prep tips on our study skills website, but they really need to be looking at their schedule. Something I've said a lot in this hour is planning ahead, planning for how much studying am I going to be able to do, or how much work am I willing to sacrifice to increase my studying so that I get the best, I perform the best at midterms and on those projects as possible. So really kind of walking back and thinking, all right, I have 4 exams or projects or whatever that may be. in 1 week. How am I going to manage that? How am I going to prepare for that? Which one is worth the most? How are they going to be delivering that midterm? Is it all multiple choice and short answer? Is it a series of essay questions? Is it a research project? What do I need in order to prepare for 2 weeks? I would say, students should look at adjusting their schedule about 2 weeks ahead of midterms, which is this week. Midterms is the first week in October, so it's coming up, right? So by this time, most of your students have already had at least one exam in their classes. If they have not gone back to look at the way they saw how they performed, so what did they miss? How might they have studied differently? What kinds of things did the instructor focus on that I didn't maybe focus on in my studying? How can I adjust how I studied for the first exam now preparing for midterms? What adjustments do I need to make? So again, that all takes planning. It takes a little bit of reflection, things that honestly our students are not the best at in this, go kind of world that we live in right now. It's just a sacrifice that they have to make, again, in their priorities and their time. So that's kind of my long spiel on midterms. Same thing with finals. Finals are a hyped up stress week, and they do not need to be. If your students have done what they need to be doing in their classes, and they've kept up with their work, and they've done their reading, reviewing their notes, looking at their exams, and reflecting on how they either performed well or maybe not so well, if they've reached out for tutoring, and if they're attending SI sessions, then walking into finals should not be stressful. And I think it's kind of one of those things that it's like, well, as a student that didn't prepare well, I freaked out, and finals are stressful, and it should be stressful for you too. They don't have to be. They're a hyped up kind of thing, I think, oftentimes. And sometimes our faculty are like, let's do final projects. Let's do a group project. You all work together on something that you're really passionate about, and then show it off, right? It's your time to shine and to show what you know. That's what the chants are at schools for standardized testing, right? Show what you know, right? So as long as you've done that preparation work, midterms can be a breeze, finals can be a breeze. But if you do need some help in preparing for those, definitely reach out to us. I see the banner for tomorrow's session. We talked a lot about belonging and isolation and how that feels. So make sure that you tune in tomorrow. If you need any assistance from me, or your student needs assistance from me, please feel free to share my email address, kim.sandlin@wichita.edu. I'm happy to work with you as a parent or with your student, or we can work together, or I can get them set up with a success coach or a peer coach. Really what is going to work for them is what we want to connect them, who we want to connect them to. And that, again, depends on each student. So that's all for today, I think. So Tia, I'm going to throw it back to you to do reminders, and I think we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Thank you, Kim, for being here and talking with us. I'm going to pop you out of here and say goodbye. For all of our folks who tuned in, thank you for taking your time today. We will be back at 6:00 p.m. If you didn't get to see the entire session, you can come back then. Otherwise, we hope to see you tomorrow for our next session, Cultivating an Environment of Belonging with our Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Thank you, everyone.